Do you guys want to start now, or do you want to wait a few more minutes in case a couple people show, or? It's up to you, you know.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Wow. Do we need the microphone?
Can we talk to you like this?
I don't know. Let's talk on the microphone, it's more fun.
Okay.
We brought it all the way here.
And we brought it all the way from down the street. So we're Dune Craft Cooperative. We're 5 farms. This is 4 of the farms being represented here. The 5th one is in Wellfleet. So I'm Drake Cook from Pure Joy Farm, along with Debbie Hopkins and John Hopkins. And this is Dave DeWitt. And we have Tim McCarthy over there from edicate Cannabis Connection.
I'm filming.
We're filming. We are filming. If you have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll answer them as they come. And we usually film everything we do, so we're used to the camera. We have Peter from Longwood Artisan Growers here, and Steph and Boz from Out There Grown. We've all been farming in Truro for a number of years, some of us more than others. Dave?
I've been farming for 31 years.
And Steph?
Yeah, I think I'm at 28 or 29.
Yeah.
A lot.
We're at 12.
12. And we've been doing it for 10.
10.
Just about 10, yeah. So we're a cooperative. It's one of the licenses that you can apply for in Massachusetts for cannabis growing. It's something that allows the small farmer to enter at a lower cost than the big cultivators, which is great because we're just small, tiny, minuscule farms here. Do you want to?
The co-op model was basically created in Truro with Julian Sear and Sarah Peake and my business partner Tim, looking at models of equity, able to get folks who can't be vetted with $500,000 to get into the industry, to try to come up with a solution to let farmers who in the state already have the infrastructure and the necessities to grow a crop successfully and get it to market. So they modeled the craft marijuana cooperative license from a shellfish co-op, basically made one down in Falmouth and then one locally as well. So the legislation, and the governor signed that last July, creating this new license. It wasn't one of the initial 4 licenses that was available. And they also, at that same time, did the micro business, which is the same basic idea, but it's more geared towards someone who wants to make a cannabis product, and who might be small scale and just trying to get into the industry without having a lot of loopholes. I mean, financial loopholes to get over. So when they did probably read up here better. When they did it, this is basically what it takes to be a craft marijuana cooperative in the state. I kind of edited it down because it's literally like many pages in the regulations. So, and we want to, we're introducing a couple of names in here, maybe, no, not yet. So the overseers of this industry is called the Cannabis Control Commission. So if we say the CCC, that's what we're talking about. And if we say HDCC, we're talking about our group of our co-op, Dune Craft Cooperative. So that's what it would take. It talks about the total canopy license of 100,000 square feet. Every cultivated license in the state is a maximum of 100,000 square feet, whether it's a craft cooperative license or a cultivator license, which is geared more towards the larger scale producers. So that's, so we'll move on. We all know that we need more jobs in this town. I don't think any one of us can disagree with that. We would love to be bringing families back here, give them opportunities to live in this town. The cost of rent in land here is so high that a lot of folks are unable to live here unless they have a significant amount of income to do so. So we're looking for local year-round high-paying jobs that we're going to be bringing to our town. There's the industry jobs. Those are the jobs that people that will be creating with our business, and we thought it was 19? That by year 3 to 5, most of our business models take us projected forward to having about 19 new year-round employees in the town together, all of our farms together. Tim and I alone, we're looking at paying them $20 an hour. I don't know what everyone else's business models per se, but ours is offering $20 an hour, and it'll be an employee-owned company as well. So, but the non-industry jobs are also really important. Those are your lawyers and your accountants and your electrician and the plumber and the garden center, and I think the list could go on. There's all computer technology, security technology, it goes on. So that's the non-industry jobs we're talking about. There's a significant amount of potential here to bring some tax dollars through jobs, and not just through the revenue, taxing of the actual cannabis, but real hard-paying jobs where people can maybe get a head start in this town. So, you want to take it for a while?
So right now we're in the process of applying for our license. It's a long process. And it's all through the Cannabis Control Commission, which is the state agency. We'll be 5 farms working under 1 license, and initially we'll be applying for a Tier 3 designation, which is 10,000 to 20,000 square feet of canopy split among our 5 farms. We will grow, process, and package for wholesale, direct to wholesale, no consumer sales. We won't be having any people coming to the farm to buy. There's not going to be any sort of retail at our locations. And the product will be tested, unlike the illicit market products that are out there now that are untested for pesticides or for anything that's being added to molds and things, and the security will be through, we have to have our security plan through the state, and it has to be okayed by the Truro police and fire. And we, outside of the necessary percentage that we have to give to offset the cost of our business being in Truro for whatever that may be, police or what else?
Whatever
services we're using.
What Drake is talking about is an aspect of our license. We have to get what's called a host community agreement, an HCA we call it. The host community agreement is with the town. The town is the host, and we have to come up with an agreement to allow our business to be in the town. Part of the host community agreement is that the town can maximum get 3% of our gross for the first 5 years only, and after that, that's it. So those are some numbers you might hear, like, for a retail dispensary, if someone were to go apply for a retail license, they have an additional 3% tax that can go to the town, and we did vote on that last town meeting to accept that 3% tax. So that's not, it doesn't involve our group, because we're not a dispensary, we're just going to be growers. So that's what she's talking about in there.
Outside that, we'll be donating.
Yeah, what it says here is that we've written our bylaws as a co-op. We have to be formed as a co-op. In our bylaws, we have stated that a certain percentage of our sales will be going to be donated back to the town's nonprofits that are needing cash. So, Council on Aging, the school, if it's a nonprofit, whoever's a nonprofit would benefit from will be benefiting from our business. You know, that's not something that's mandated by the state, but it's something that we feel as community members would be an appropriate decision to make to give back to our community. All of us have worked in the community, and most of you know us already, so I'm not going to reiterate what we've done for the town already in the last many years, but you know, we want to continue to be good neighbors and contribute to our community wherever we can. The last thing is how we will operate will be all cultivation will be organic. Another one of our bylaws that we strictly all agree upon. And as a co-op, one of our bylaws is that we work on consensus. So if one of us doesn't agree on something, we go back to the table and hash it out. And at first, it sounded like a really easy idea, but in reality, as the months have lingered on, it's been pretty, you know, there's been a lot of moments where we've had to spend a lot of hours going back to the table to come up with some agreements that we all think will help benefit the co-op. So, in the, you know, this meeting was spurred on due to the, you know, when we had the public hearing with the planning board. I don't know what date that was. I think it was the 8th, maybe. Maybe you remember seeing the date. I think it was the 8th. We kind of decided that, you know, maybe we need to like explain ourselves another time. So we're having another meeting. There's been a lot of discussions about commercial agriculture and these kind of terms that are very vague and like really not necessarily always appropriate to what we're talking about. So we wanted to show you exactly the type of greenhouses that we're talking about. These are the greenhouses that our group all along have been talking about. Okay, the one on top is a small Kwanzaa greenhouse. It's very simple, typically unheated. It's a low-cost greenhouse that's easily put up and easily to take down. It has no permanent foundation. And as far as this town has been for at least the last 31 years since I've been farming, they do not require a building permit. It's a non-permanent structure, okay? So the one below it is a Gothic style greenhouse. That one's used when a grower like myself at Davis Greens and Roxbury Nursery, when you're heating a crop on the shoulder seasons, or if you're heating a crop in the winter. For instance, when we grow our heath and heather, we have to have some heat. So this is a greenhouse that's used in the winter time that can then shed the snow. That's why the design is there. And it also has better ventilation and a few other good cultural things. So these are the two greenhouses we're talking about. We've, you know, there's giant big greenhouses that are called gutter connected houses. These are not the ones we're talking about. Gutter connected houses can be as big as you can make them. You just connect them by a gutter. Yes, sir.
Is it okay if I ask a question?
Sure, it sure is. Yeah.
Right, and for me, it's really just clarifying questions.
Yeah.
So how does this dovetail, for example, with the town's regulations, for example, that there needs to be security, or the plants need to be secure, they need to be out of public view. So is that something that you do? These are these locked, are they secure, are they behind the fence?
You can certainly lock the door, but you can see it's just plastic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it would take a pocket knife to get in there.
But so how are you guys dealing with that?
Well, we're going to follow whatever the state mandates we do. We're going to, you know, the security regulations are going to come down from them. They're individually doing every single site individually. So this site might not need a security fencing, and another site might. So they're going to, the state will determine in our process of getting our application and our license what we need to do. And if it says we need to fence it, we will fence it. We'll do whatever the state's going to mandate us to do. So at this juncture, it's a little premature to talk about fencing because we really don't know if they're even going to require it. You know, so there's a lot of discussion with the CCC and other farms in the state where, you know, a lot of farmers don't want to put up fences because it stops the flow of migratory animals and et cetera, and they, you know, they don't want, they have, you know, we have other things on our farm growing, you know, so that needs, so basically they're going to do it on an individual basis, and then we're just going to have to follow them to the letter as far as security goes. So we, some of our group have been away for a few days, and I haven't spoken to all of them yet, but my security, head of security that's going to work for Outer Cape Cannabis Connection, Tim and I's business, has agreed to be the security agent for all of us. And he's a retired police officer from Provincetown. And he said, go ahead and give my name. So it's Bobby Polero, some of you may know, lobster fisherman and police officer. He's going to go and work with all of our farms, make sure that we're following the letter to the T for the state so that we can get our license, and then work with the town of Truro's police department to help minimize their expenses. So if Bobby can do some of the footwork, then the town will have to allocate so much of its resources towards that security issue. So Bobby Blair will be working with our police and our fire chief to make sure that we are compliant with whatever the state is requiring us to do. So that's news for all of you anyways, but we have talked about it already. They know that, they know Bobby's situation. So, any other greenhouse questions?
No, that's all. By the way, so there are regulations already that we can talk about. There are very clear state guidelines and regulations.
Let me just interject for 1 second. We should have maybe said at the beginning, but the regulations are online. You go to the Cannabis Control Commission, and the majority of, I would say 99.99% of everyone's concerns are in the regulations. They're covered. So read them. I'm not saying it's going to take, it's 80, 100 something pages long, and it's dry reading. It's not going to be fun. But if you're really concerned, read up on how regulated we're going to be. We're going to be so highly regulated, more than alcohol, more than tobacco, more than gambling. We're going to be the #1 regulated industry in the state. So if you're really concerned about a lot of the little details, it's right here. I actually have a copy that's pretty thick. So we suggest you go and read the regulations.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be secured and not visible without.
Yeah.
But that's okay. So another clarifying question: how are you guys, if at all, involved in the retail business? Was that just completely separate?
We'll have no retail at all. There'll be no.
And that's what you said. Okay.
There'll be no direct sales, no retail sales. Our license only allows us to sell wholesale to a licensed state business. So we can sell to an adult use dispensary. Eventually we'll be able to sell to a medical dispensary when the CCC and the Department of Public Health merge in a couple months. When the CCC takes over the Department of Public Health, who runs the medical dispensaries, at that point, the craft cooperative or one of a larger cultivator who goes for the larger license, not the small one we're going for, would be able to sell to them. So we'll be able to sell to adult use dispensaries, eventually medical dispensaries, medical testing facilities was the new one that the state added because a lot of universities have been trying to get access to cannabis for dozens and dozens of years, and the state has shut them down because it's been illegal. So now Tufts and Mobile and I have these options to finally be in a state where they can test it and start to do some medical research. So medical research licenses are out there. Processor license is another license you can get from the state. Processing and manufacturing, that's for someone who's going to make a product, like an edible product out of cannabis. So we'll be able to sell to them as well, but only to a licensed, state licensed facility.
So the other items that the town is dealing with, like before the town regarding the retail sale is separate. Would they be approved separately? So could you theoretically, as cultivators, everything goes through, you're fine, you can cultivate, but maybe the retail sales and some of the other distribution items before the town might not? And I'm saying, okay, so.
You're absolutely right. So every licensed business in the state has to get a host community agreement. So every single business has to go work with town council, work with the board of selectmen, and come up with a host community agreement. As far as the bylaws go for cannabis in this business, in this town, those bylaws have yet to be written and voted on. So, as far as retail dispensaries go, and I think that's kind of what your main angle is the retail one, right? Or are you concerned about the manufacturing?
Just trying to understand, clarify.
So the way that the state has set up the rules for retail is we're allowed 20% of the town can have 20% of the liquor licenses. So in this town, that's 1. So there can only be one
Yeah.
in this town. And that's only if that gets adopted in the bylaws, right? So it has the option to have more than one if the town so opts to do that. It doesn't minimize, you know, they can get more, but the town will have to vote on that, and as far as the bylaws, that would have to go through a town meeting. So as it stands now, in this town, we can only have one dispensary, and we know of none.
Yeah, well, realistically, there's not anywhere that they really want it.
We're pretty restricted, they would be really restricted, they'd have a hard time getting up, you know,
This
getting.
is very helpful, this, I'm sorry, I saw this question.
And also, you know, by the way, we did initially, we planned on that, we had a little pieces of paper back there for people to write questions, we were just gonna take all the questions that way, but our group got a little bit larger, but if we wanna go back to that method, we could do that too, but, I don't mind going this direction if you guys don't mind.
Nice, I like that.
Okay, so,
There's, when I read through some of the proposed bylaws, there are a lot of terms and a lot of descriptions of potential businesses. So there's the farming and the growing and the
so when we talk to farming, let's break it into two.
Yeah.
There's the craft cooperative license, that's what we're applying for.
Right, got it.
Then there's the cultivator license, okay, which is the same amount of square footage as we have total, but that could be one business with 100,000 square foot canopy.
And then there's distribution and sales. So I'm confused about all the different.
So all those have to get worked out in the bylaws. It's a matter of,
Are they separate things? On this?
they're all separate licenses, yeah. So there's a processing and manufacturing license. There's going to be a distribution license, you know, for someone who wants to transport, a transport business, testing facilities, and then retail operations, and then micro businesses,
Okay.
which is,
Expand on the micro business a little bit.
yeah. So the micro business is the same kind of, was created out of the same vein as the craft cooperative model that would allow small, you know, not a lot of capital to get into the business. The state is really trying to emphasize equity and not have so many barriers to get into this industry, because if you look at all the states that followed us, you know, you need $500,000 to get into the game. You can't even start to get in the game unless you have $500,000, and they vet you. And if you're vetted and you don't have that, then you're out of you don't even get anywhere in the process. So this model was to encourage farms to get involved, and then micro businesses, which would be typically geared towards the way that they're kind of angling it a little bit, and the way it's kind of as the process is unfolding with the state, it's really geared towards minorities right now. A lot of minorities, people who have low access to capital, people who have historically been denied because of the color of their skin or their sexual preference or something along those lines. So they're really trying to gear and get those people who don't have means to get the traditional capital that some of us have, you know, due to the nature of our sex and ethnicity. So the micro business model was picked up to get small stuff together. So if a cultivator wanted to come in as a micro business cultivator, they can only go up to tier 1 in the tiers. And we can talk about tiers in a minute, but they can only have 5,000 square feet of canopy to be a micro business. They can only process 2,000 pounds worth of material if they want to be like a processor. So they're limited in how far their business can be, you know, by being a micro business. It keeps them small, but gets them in the game. The goal here is also try to market these types of businesses, the craft cooperative and the micro businesses, kind of like the craft beer model that happened through the late 80s, you know, mid-late 80s, and it's continued today, the craft distilleries like we have in our town, things like that. So, looking for a niche market. You know, can we compete with the big guys who have, you know, 3 or 4 licenses, 100,000 square feet each license? No, we can't compete with that. So what we can do is we can have a quality product that's a niche market for us to try to get into that marketplace and get our footing in there. Another important reason for us to get in this industry soon. And we've been trying to work with the town, and lately have been really working with the town to get to this point since December. So our discussion today is not new. We've been discussing this since December with the town. So you know, here we are, we're trying to get these bylaws that we can work together and get to town meeting, and all of us can get it passed, and we can all work collaboratively to get a bylaw set that we can all vote on and support, and then we can all get to work. And the town can benefit from potential jobs and stuff like that. So it's important for us to get in the industry early, because that's when you get branded. If the branding doesn't happen soon, 2 years down the line, other companies are already gotten the shelf space for that niche that we're looking for. That niche is going to be very small shelf space. It's not going to be large. So we need to get in there early. And that's going to be, you know, that's one of the reasons we're trying to get this ball going, so we can get our businesses to be viable. Yes.
I'm getting, I was at the planning board meeting.
Could you speak up, please?
I was at the planning board meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I'm getting a totally different vibe from this meeting. I don't know if it's because your lawyer was here or what, but I found that meeting to be scary. Because talking about the future, and it seemed like everything was happening really fast. 80,000, 100,000 square feet, I found it very confusing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if you're going to have your bylaws and maybe planning board bylaws ready for us to look at before the next meeting?
There's going to be a planning board meeting.
Can't hear you.
You're right, I can't talk loud.
Do you want the mic, please? Do you want the mic?
Now, we're going to have a planning board meeting tomorrow night right here, and we're just going to discuss how we're going to implement the bylaw. There will be a planning board meeting for the cannabis bylaw the following week on Wednesday.
The 22nd.
That's correct.
So let me, let's backtrack a little bit.
I
if you
just
don't
wanted
mind.
to finish one thing.
Go ahead, Steve.
At that meeting, we hope to consolidate everything and provide everyone with a bylaw they can read.
Okay.
There will be a fall town meeting.
Okay.
Just-
And the town meeting is yet to be dated. They're actually voting on that now at the Board of Selectmen. But we're assuming, you know, time is, you know, tough, so it's probably going to get pushed back some more. But, you know, the last meeting, I think, had a different vibe because it was a planning board meeting. And this is just a meeting with us, you know, so.
With your lawyer and when he was speaking, it just sounded very overwhelming, like
Yeah.
he was trying to
I think you could probably,
everything, and it was a little scary to listen.
I understand. I think there was a lot of confusion in the room. There's about details, and that's why we're trying to say, this is the greenhouse we're talking about, not something else. So, you know, we're here to address your concerns, and what was scary about that meeting is what we want to talk about in this meeting. So, you know, formulate questions, you know, give them to us, you know, that's what we're here for. We're here tonight to address your concerns and your questions, and to be more, and to be, I mean, we've had 2 public meetings already, this is our 3rd, and, you know, so we've always been more than transparent with the town. We have done nothing but been transparent. So we're here to be your neighbor and ask, you know, and you can ask us the questions you might have.
Well, I went to the meeting at the library that they had.
Mhm.
It was a good meeting. And then the last meeting, I thought it was a completely different vibe, and this is a whole different vibe.
Well, it was a planning board meeting. I mean, and, you know, and granted, you know, I'm sure you can appreciate our need for a lawyer, right? I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
we need a lawyer, okay? This is a very intense, confusing industry and time. I mean, we're making history, right? This is like history-breaking stuff. That's why everything's being filmed, because this truly is, we're the first state to offer the craft cooperative license. No other state has done it, and most of my consultants in those states are saying, God, I wish we did what you guys are doing. The CCC has done a great job. It's unveiling it slowly, and it's not moving as quickly as some people would like, but they've really done a fine job with the regulations. They're actually really good. And they involve the public through the entire time. They have very many open meetings. Every one of their meetings has been filmed. I've watched every single one of the CCC meetings, and I've testified at the State House 6 times. I went all over the state to meetings, and they listened to the people's concerns, negative and positive, and everything, and wrote these regulations. So the state, the community has been involved more than any other state. It hasn't just been a legislation body going over there. They've included all of us.
And I apologize, but our bylaw draft is online on our Facebook page right now.
It
We've
is.
submitted it to the planning board. What Steve is talking about tomorrow night, Steve, can I?
Tomorrow night, we're actually talking about the house size amendment, but we are having this on the agenda not to take public comment, only so the board can just formulate methods of the next meeting, you know, just to make it a little less,
as-
tension.
And we're hoping that ours will
Yeah.
be consolidated together and that they'll release that on the 22nd. But you
The
can find out.
bylaws that we've been working on collaboratively with the town has moved along quite well in the last few weeks. And I do believe that, you know, we have some sticking points for sure, but it's been a collaborative effort. And I do believe that we're gonna, you know, we're all optimistically hoping that we're gonna get through this together and get a bylaw that we can pass at town meeting, so we don't have to have a contentious debate.
And one more quick question.
Sure.
Very quick. All fencing and lighting shall comply with the state regulations. Does that mean lighting regulation overrides the Truro lighting bylaw?
No.
No.
As, I think that as we've written in the proposed edits is, that whatever is the, oh no, that's for signage. For, what's that?
Can I speak to that?
Oh, yeah.
Well, the regulations for by the commission, as far as interior lighting, say you were going to light your greenhouse, the CCC is required that you only use an LED grow light, which only casts down. Whereas currently, in Truro, we do have the exterior lights with all of the, down lighting. But in a greenhouse currently now, if I want to grow tomatoes, I can use a high pressure sodium halide, which is those grow lights that you think of when you think of that light that casts a lot of light, and it casts it in all directions. We are, which is a traditional method of growing a tomato inside, or if you're starting your starts. But the CCC has required that any cannabis will be grown with the new technology, which is like a cool light, the LED, and it only shines right down. There's no off lights. And then as far as exterior lighting, for security reasons, they will comply with the Truro down lighting. So there will be none, we all want to see the stars too.
Thanks.
Quick question.
Yep.
As far as applying for your licenses, has that process been started before the town has bylaws passed?
Yes.
So the
Yeah.
licensing,
We're in the middle of our licensing process.
But it can't be completed until
Until the host community agreement is
agreement
signed.
is agreed on, which is dependent upon the zoning bylaws being passed.
Okay, so I'm gonna take her, because she did have ran up first, so I'm gonna go with Marcia.
Yeah. I've asked a lot of questions, so no, you go ahead.
Thank you, Dave. With this picture, I've gone to all three of your meetings,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm still finding a lot of vagueness.
Okay.
So take, for instance, these pictures. We have a Quonset, we have a Gothic.
Mm-hmm.
What's to say that you won't be putting what I've heard, a pod or a brick building, something other than something that can be cut through with a knife? What's stopping you from doing that?
The special permit process would have most
Okay.
likely stopped that.
And that, okay.
If it's,
So-
if any site doesn't pass through the special permit process, then that site cannot be used.
And so the site only gets these two things, that's it?
No.
No.
Well, then explain, please.
If, let's say I was to build a one-story building with cedar shingles and clapboards, and I painted my trim white, and I had a nice asphalt roof,
Right?
okay? And it was allowed to be built on that property, and it was, allowed to be there. And we built that building,
Uh-huh.
and then we grew cannabis inside of it. So we're not saying, structures are necessary for this industry. There's a significant amount of stuff that we want to do that's not going to be in the greenhouse. We have to cure the crop, dry it, take care of it, process it, keep it in inventory, under lock and safe in a vault, et cetera, et cetera. So all that stuff is not necessarily, we're not going to have a finished product
Right.
being inventoried in a building
That's my
that's like
concern.
that. So it's going to have to go into an inside building. But there's no one to say, if a building can be built on a lot, and it needs to go through the special permit process. It's gonna have to go through that process, and then it has to go through a site review. So none of these locations are gonna be allowed to go any further unless they can get through those 2 channels which already exist in our town. So we're not asking for anything special. We're asking to go through the same process that we've had to go through whenever there's a special permit requirement.
Okay, so, again, please, excuse me for not understanding, but, so that we hear rumblings of the word pod.
Containers, yeah.
Containers.
Shipping
Where does
containers,
that come in with this?
yeah. That would maybe sit right next to that greenhouse.
So then it is
Container.
possible after you got some sort of special gobbledygook thing, right?
After someone.
You got your special permit or something, you could have a pod.
Well, the town would have to give us a special permit to have,
Right,
the- to
but it's
have the
a-
pod.
Okay.
So that would go through the zoning board of appeals, and that same process that anyone would have that would want a pod, any structure that needs to, is in a non-use, non-conforming use situation.
Sure.
So pod, a building with shingles, it's really the same to us. It's a structure that's gonna be needed for our business to run. Whether it's a pod or not is up for debate. And it's not necessarily, it's like one of those things where it's a cost-effective method of storing something out of the weather and keeping it secure, as opposed to a greenhouse where you could jump the fence and slice open with a knife.
And
Okay.
if that's the situation of a knife and a jumping over a fence or something, and you've got an ex-Provincetown cop doing the site decisions, did I hear that right?
Yeah.
So there's gonna be
he's
one
gonna-
guy that says, yeah, that's good, but that's not?
No, the state's gonna decide the security measures.
Not
gonna
the-
come.
Not this cop.
Not the cop. No, the state's gonna come here,
Each site.
each site, every single site, and they're gonna say, this site needs this much security. Okay? And that site needs that much security.
I see.
We don't know how it's gonna unfold because this is new. No one has done this.
Sure,
So
sure.
this is a big process. That's why the special permitting process allows the town, obviously Steve knows the terminology better, but it has to like fit into the neighborhood, right? Or something along those lines? Vaguely? Harmonious with the butter?
Harmonize with nearby architectural styles.
There you
There you
go.
go. So we're gonna have to we're gonna be confined to dealing with what the town wants us to do.
I see.
So if the town's like freaking out about pods, then maybe that doesn't happen. Or maybe it happens for the first year or two while we're getting our business off the ground, and then we can build that beautiful clapboard, white trimmed, nice asphalt shingled building that everyone would like to see. So, there maybe needs to be some compromise in the room a little bit back and forth, but we need structures. We need to be able to grow indoors to keep our brand on the shelves year round.
Okay.
We also need structures to dry and cure our
Right.
crop and to secure it in a safe. It has to be secure.
Got it.
So none of us can secure it in this situation.
No, of course not.
This is an example of what this group has talked about, the types of greenhouses. Because some of the rumbling that we've been hearing is that we're gonna have a 100,000 square foot greenhouse, gutter connected house with lights blazing all over
Sure.
the place. And that's not our intention. And that it never was our intention. So this is what we intend on growing it. Right, I know I'm speaking for everybody, but this is what we've been talking about.
And
So-
when you say tier 3, does that mean that there's more of this? And then at the end of 5 years, does tier 3 move on to tier 19?
I think he's going to explain the tiers in a few
good.
minutes.
Okay, great.
Can we let
I'm a
them
little
secure?
confused on
Can I throw
that
one
as
thing
well.
out? All of us currently grow in greenhouses like that.
Okay.
Right now, those greenhouses exist and have existed for 10, 15, 20 years. And there are in town a fair number of them already on existing farms. It's not like we're bringing something different than already exists.
I feel like we're jumping ahead of the gentleman behind, because I didn't answer his stuff too, but
I'll be quick, because I've asked so many.
yeah, we will. Say that again? Go ahead.
No, I'll be quick. So I had two concerns, and one I think I resolved by reading bylaws. It was more around the retail sales, and if someone had a home or whatever where they got a license to sell some pot or one of these stores, that the license is given to the person, it's not given to the structure. So that alleviated some of my concerns. In other words, if I had some license to do something, distribute, whatever, and I left and someone bought my property, the license doesn't go to the property.
No, it ends
No,
with-
they have to apply.
So that was good. But I think the line of question here was my second concern, which is more the look.
The aesthetics.
structures and all that.
Yeah, and I think that's a
Yeah.
huge concern with a lot of people in town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I see, you just talk about the movable structures, the trailers and the containers, 2 per parcel, what exactly are those? Screened from view by abutting properties.
So that's a movable structure like the pod, which she was discussing. If it were necessary, and if the abutters, if it affected the neighborhood, whatever, then we would employ a fence to block it out, and then maybe a fence and some plantings to block the view of any said container.
So this is all the stuff that would be in the bylaws that would have to be approved by the.
Yeah, there's a lot in there.
And then there's, what trumps some of these things are those Commonwealth laws, right? And I know it's like a broken record, I'm beating a dead horse, but these structures have been here for 15 years, understood, agreed. These structures with pot inside of them, as it stands today, need to be secured and not viewable without binoculars. That's just a fact of the law as we
Correct.
sit here right now.
Correct.
So that you can go up and slice with a knife, you wouldn't be able to have that. Even those structures would have to be secured, is what I'm saying.
Correct.
To be
Yeah.
compliant.
And that's going to be.
So how would the greenhouses be secured?
There is,
So they may make us put a fence around it.
and
Okay, not
Yeah.
different.
there's also a component of cameras, so surveillance, so
Okay.
while we're actually working inside, every 4 seconds, I believe, every 4 seconds, photo is being taken. Those, we've agreed, like, I would rather do it with infrared in the evening, because I don't want to cast floodlights on my property, and they have cameras that do that. So every 4 seconds, the camera's taking a picture. We need to have on-site the storage for that data. I think we need to keep
And it's now, the new regulation for the states, they're gonna be uploading it to the state's cloud, so that at any given point, they can look at our business and say, and watch what's happening, physically watch what's happening at every single spot. So inside the building, whatever container, whatever kind of building it is, inside of the greenhouse has to be done, outside of the greenhouse has to be done, perimeter fencing has to be cambered if there's fencing required. So the security levels that the state are gonna mandate to us are massive. It's just massive, okay? It's costly, it's gonna be a lot. The reason why we've hired security, a head of security, is to make sure we don't miss any dot, we don't miss a dot on an I or we cross a T. He's our security, our insurance to make sure that we didn't miss something, so that we are totally compliant with the state, because that's all we want to do. We want to comply with the state, and we want to work with the town. And the special permitting process and the site review part of this process gives the town a lot of authority of where these businesses are going to be located. A lot of authority. The abutters can all say no, or what. I don't know how the special permit process works, but we're about to find out. So, what we do know is that, that is an opportunity for the town, through the zoning board of appeals and through the planning board, to deny a business to go there. So there's a lot of regulatory control that the town actually has over our businesses, okay? Much more than any other industry. So, I want to, before we can talk about tiers or anything like that, I want to clarify one thing. The state go ahead. So let's, I want to cover what's called, canopy is different than a greenhouse space, okay? So for instance, one of my greenhouses that I have is, let's say 4,800 square feet. I can't grow 4,800 square feet of canopy in that location, okay? Canopy is plant to plant touching each other. If we were to take a birdshot view down of the crop growing, that's the canopy, okay? There's what's called headroom in a greenhouse. When you walk in, it's typically the first 20 feet of a greenhouse. is for working, you know, storage or whatever. And then there's aisles and there's walkways and there's all sorts of stuff. So a greenhouse like that on the bottom, which is a 28 by 96 foot greenhouse, is significantly, you know, a third of that is not in production. So the license calls for canopy, not greenhouse, not actual square footage of a building. It has to be with canopy, okay? And, you know, there's been a lot of arguments of what it can be and not. So I just want to clarify the canopy part so that there's no, you know, distinction between the two. So go for it.
Hi, thanks for having this meeting.
You're welcome.
I've been to 2 of your other meetings.
I assume you have both, yep.
Yes. And what I would really appreciate, and because I imagine that you all know exactly what it is you'd like to do in the ideal situation, is to see some sort of a spreadsheet with each of your names, your location, exactly what you're going to have. Okay, I'm going to have one of those at the top. I'm going to have 2 pods. And if everyone could do that, it would be very helpful because, you know, we got all this and I'm not sure exactly what it's going to be like.
So you're skipping ahead of slides. Is it a spreadsheet? No, but it's a slide, and what we're prepared to do today.
But I want it in my hot little hand. I want to look at it.
Michelle, can we just click ahead?
No, we're going to, I mean, you know, I want to clarify what the production is going to look like, and then we can talk about how each farm is going to do its production, because the state doesn't only say we have to grow in greenhouses, or the state says we don't only have to grow in a container or any kind of building. It also allows open air cultivation. So we want to kind of go through all the terminology first, so we're all on the same page about how we're going to grow, and then we'll talk about where and how we're planning on growing it, okay?
And would that information ever be available to us because this is a lot to take in one sitting, just to be able to look at it and see, okay, this amount of space is open air, and these are pods, and these are greenhouses, and these are...
So, you know, we'll discuss it today, and we'll give you the numbers and the stuff you're interested in. And it's always going to be on our Facebook page, because we film everything. So you can go to our videos and watch the filming of all of this undergo. And if you forgot something from a meeting, you can go back and you can watch it.
I can ask on Facebook.
Our Facebook, at the end, you're going to see our Facebook page, but basically just do a Facebook search for Dune Craft Cooperative, and there's the bylaws we've been working on have been posted, and the town's initial bylaws are there. So there's.
No, I'm sure you're pretty thorough.
And and me personally, I have a phone number, so you just call and say, Dave, how many square foot do you want to grow by year 3? You know, because all of us are starting in this industry small, okay? None of us are ready to just jump into it like full bore. Let's get 100,000 square feet growing today. It's going to take time for us to grow, okay? And we have to divide up our canopy between all of us. So some of us might want to grow a little bit faster than others. So it's going to be somewhat in flux. So there's not going to be a defined spreadsheet saying year 3, Out There Organic's going to have 4,800 square feet. They may have more, but they may have less. It's just a matter of that business growth. So, as far as like divulging all of our business plan, I mean, that might not be the most prudent thing to do, in the business world. I mean, you don't ask Nike for their personal, when you want to buy a shoe. So it's kind of maybe a bad analogy, but, we're not about to divulge specific numbers about, someone wanted to know how much money we're going to make. Well, that's really private,
I'm not
So,
concerned about that. I just was really interested in
So,
having a perspective.
We're going to go through every one of the farm's intentions, and we're going to discuss future growth, okay? But let's define what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, and then we'll be able to get to those steps where you can just literally ask us what we're going to do. There's some overlay maps on there where it's appropriate, so you can see the lots that we're talking about. All right? So, indoor cultivation is what Marcia was gearing towards. This is kind of what it looks like.
Are those mature plants?
Those are, they're looking pretty mature.
Those are not LEDs.
Those are not
Those
LEDs.
are not LEDs.
Those are not LEDs, no.
See the light?
Those are high-pressure sodium lights, which will be restricted.
You won't be able to use those lights.
Like as Stephanie said, they'll be restricted. We're going to be, the CCC is mandating that you can only use 36
Yeah, we can only have a light strong enough to cast 36 for I can't remember lumens. Certain amount of lumens per 36 square foot on that on a smaller grid. It's actually really low. It's almost hard to grow a crop with what they're going to request, but hopefully the technology will catch up. So that's what an indoor thing looks like. There's lights associated with it. There's a drainage system for the water to go to. There's air conditioners, HVAC, filters just to get rid of aroma and odors. That's kind of what it is. From the research we've been doing over the many months, it's going to be pretty important for indoor production to happen to be able to keep your product on the shelf on a year-round basis. None of us are prepared to get into the indoor stuff quickly because it's very costly to do so. And we're starting small, building our capital, and then someday maybe we'll have an indoor situation. The other option for cultivation allowed by the state is open air cultivation, and that's what this is, okay? Fenced off, can't be viewed by the public, as you know, sir. There it is, that's open air. That's the most cost-productive method to get into the business, and ironically enough, it actually has the most, minimizes the most environmental impact because it's not using a lot of electricity. So if you were to put a carbon square foot print on this, you would actually gain because the soil sequesters carbon in the atmosphere, and you're actually gaining carbon by growing like this. So the whole carbon issue and energy gets devoid with this argument. So do any of us intend to do that right now? Probably.
Yes.
It's a low-cost way for us to get into it. So there you go. That's that part. We go to the next slide, which I think is begins. Yeah. So now we're going to go through the farms one by one and discuss our intentions. Okay. Then you can specifically say what you'd like to, what size greenhouse you're intending to do.
So this is Pure Drive Farm. Deborah Hawkins, John Hawkins, and myself, Drake Cook. And we're at 21 Old Bridge Road, dead end road. That's not populated during most of the year. And we're going to do open air cultivation, like in those containers in the last slide. When you look at something like this, it ends up looking somewhat like a garden nursery, like a
Christmas
tree. What's that?
Christmas tree farm.
Christmas tree farm, exactly, yeah. So that's the aesthetic we'll be going for with a fence around it. And so within the red is our existing garden right as of right now, and within the yellow is our proposed area for cannabis cultivation that will be completely separate from vegetable production, and we're going to be sharing that space with Steph and Boz from Out There Growing.
It's a greenhouse, usually.
The greenhouse, yeah, the large rectangle within the yellow and red is a greenhouse, an existing greenhouse. And we're focusing on high CBD strains. We have a medical focus at Pure Drive Farm. And we'll continue growing vegetables, making hummus, and actually the cannabis will be supporting those endeavors. Hopefully we'll be able to hire more people for the vegetable production so we can actually produce more and better vegetables, food for the community. And it started, Pure Drive Farm started in 2007. We started going to markets about 5 years ago. And the land was farmland.
Yes, it was farmland in the 1950s. Up until the 1950s, was existing farmland. It was known as the turnip patch because they grew turnips up there.
Yeah, so we'll be doing open air. We're not looking at any indoor at the moment. It's not in the space we have, so.
Can you give an idea of the general amount of area that is?
It's about 80 by 80.
The growing area?
The growing area.
But not your canopy area.
And that's for both.
Or is it your?
No, that is the area within the yellow square is about 80 by 80
And that's for both.
for both of them.
Just somewhere
That was
around
it.
4,000
Yeah,
square
about
feet of
4,000, yeah.
canopy divided between the
Yeah.
two different businesses. So it would be 2,000
2,000
square feet for out there organics within that area, and roughly 2,000 square feet of canopy for Pure Joy Farm within that area. That may sound a little confusing.
That was
Yeah.
confusing,
Okay.
so just
So
let's
they're
try
gonna
that
get, they're
again.
gonna get to their slides. So if you
Oh,
focus
we're
on your
talking about
square
another
footage.
farm.
No, we are leasing land.
Oh, okay.
Because we're located
We live
in
in the
National
park. Yeah, we
Seashore,
live in
it's
the park.
federally not okay.
Our farm is in the park, so until
I understand.
something,
Yes.
yeah, that's not
How
happening.
big is that parcel that we're looking at? Just the whole thing?
It's just under an acre.
Okay.
So if I'm looking at that map, kind of, it looks like their potential canopy or cannabis area, which can't all be cannabis because that needs the headroom space.
Yes.
That's like,
You're looking like maybe, what, a fifth of their lot, maybe? I would say, guesstimate, if I'm just guesstimating. And that's split between two growers, so we're gonna get to these guys in a minute, and they can, so if you wanna specifically tell about how many square feet you're planning on doing this year, that might be beneficial.
Yeah, we're looking at 2,000 square feet of canopy first year.
You know, that's clear, but then unclear. And maybe, because I don't understand how many plants would grow in a square foot.
It depends
That
on,
is
it depends on.
Trade secret.
That's subjective because some people grow small little ones and they're just growing
Lots of
for
them.
one, you know, like bud basically, and some people grow
Some are just
larger.
grow one larger
That's-
than the size of the
So
table.
in the canopy, as we discussed, right, the 2,000 square feet, it could be, it varies on the style of agriculture that you choose to
I
employ.
can accept that, I'm just trying to get a concept.
There's
of-
different techniques to growing.
Instead of doing a plant number-based system for the.
I get the
commission,
canopy
they-
concept.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, okay.
So that's why the state went with the canopy thing, because it was unfair to say you can have 1,000 plants, that someone grows 1,000 this size and someone grows 1,000 this size.
Okay.
It's a big difference. So it's really, in
It's
genetics,
good to explain
in
it.
genetics as well, genetics also have a huge play in this. So every plant is not the same. So some may yield maximum, a pound. Others may yield 5.2 pounds. It's really up to the genetics. So I think that's why it's important that we understand canopy, because that's not total canopy in that square. That's a lot of other stuff besides just that.
Aisleways.
There's, you gotta have work. You gotta work.
Ventilation.
Airflow.
So you're talking about 2,000 square feet of canopy.
Canopy.
Okay. So we're going to total this up, and that's going to tell us what tier we're at. Okay.
So as you're starting small, you say, as you grow over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, is your plan to put more canopy on the existing parcels, or is your plan to purchase land and grow on, the new parcel? How do you plan, or
How do we grow our businesses? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a big plan.
And the
So I'm
answer-
just wondering, you just.
The answer is going to be both.
Both, okay.
Some farms may lease another piece of property. We may want to lease another piece of property. For instance, I've already been approached by 4 people to grow cannabis on their property. Truro residents are looking to, maybe get a piece of the action, whatever the case may be. So, yes, there could be, as far as our license goes, we could have 100,000 square feet of canopy total. So, and then that's divided up between, there's a fifth wheel that you're not seeing in Wellfleet, albeit she's the smallest spoke in the wheel, but she's there. She wants to do 1,000 square feet max, So, and within our own the Dune Craft Cooperative bylaws, a member in the co-op is limited, we get to 50,000 square feet. There has to be discussion amongst the group about whether they can stay in the co-op or pursue a larger license. Because there's, we want to be fair and divvy things up. We don't want to have one person taking all the canopy if it's not agreed upon. So if someone were to get up to 5,000 square feet, we'd have to sit at the table and just, 50,000 square feet. We'd have to sit and discuss how we go forward, whether they can continue, can they go past 50? Maybe someone says, I'm not gonna go any farther, you can have my 10, whatever, you know. So there is room for advancement in this industry and within the license that we're looking to get.
So, and then you convert that to a measurement that I don't understand. So 40,000 square feet is about an acre, right?
43,560
There you go.
is an acre.
So 100,000 square feet is 2.5 acres.
It happens when you're a soils major, they like that. That number sticks in your
I
head.
understand that that's canopy size, it's not, there's a lot of aisleways in between everything, so I don't think that you could really, on that small, you can't put 43,000 square feet of canopy on 1
that
acre.
lot.
It
No.
just can't
Yeah.
happen with the
Right, so we
setbacks.
don't, so that's what I'm trying to understand.
So, yeah, so they're,
Let's say you all maxed out at 100,000.
Yeah.
That's total for the whole group.
For all of us.
Well,
That's
okay, so-
combined. Combined.
yeah, one license in the state, one cultivation license is 100,000 square feet. The craft cooperative license, 100,000 square feet, or the big cultivator license is 100,000 square feet. The difference is, and we moved that first slide pretty quick, is the craft cooperative can only hold one license in the state. So an organization, let's say, you know, some big money people come in, they can get 5 licenses, cultivation licenses, and have 500,000 square feet of production. Okay? So we're very limited in what we can do. We can get 100,000 square feet of canopy, and we can't go any farther. We can't get another license by the state. They won't allow it. That's part of this.
Could someone else create a new cooperative in Truro?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That could happen. Someone could also get a cultivator license and come in here, one person, and get 100,000 square feet. So these are all issues that we're working on the bylaws. You know, these are the give and takes of the negotiation. So.
Such as limiting the number of co-ops in the town, limiting cultivators, and also where they can be, you know, residential, you know, so there's what zone. So these are all things that the planning board and other members are all working on together. We're trying to come to a consensus so that when we come to town meeting, we're only with one bylaw that everyone has agreed on, so we can go have a nice town meeting and, you know, one that doesn't go until 11:30, which those are great too. But, you know, there's a lot, these are all little things that are being worked out, and we're all trying to come to consensus because, you know, we live here and we want to keep the town the same way. I'd like to see it like it was 20 years ago, but, you know, we don't want metal structures everywhere. I mean, there's like this discussion, but we live here, we want to see it, and I mean, and this is John and Deb's home, where they come outside of their house, so they want it to not only fit into the character, but they want to be able to live with it. So it's not like we're looking to put up the storage locker that you see on the highway on at our house. So.
And if they did, they'd have to go through a special permit and site plan, right? I mean, that's part of the point here, is to realize there is oversight that the town's going to have beyond our state licensure. You know, it's just there. It's built into the system. There's no cannabis business is going to happen in this town without a special permit, not one. So not a testing facility, not a processor and manufacturer, not a micro business. Everyone's got to go through a special permit. So, you know, we were hoping that our little flyer would clarify some parts of that.
It's confusing. It is. I mean, I've read the regulations, and it's still several times, and
I
it's
want to
still
answer Steve's
confusing.
question myself personally, because what is in that red up there?
Yeah.
The red is existing gardens. You can come up, and I'm not inviting anybody to come up. I'm a very private person, believe me. But that garden right now produces for the market in Truro and Wellesley, and last year produced for the market in Provincetown. It's not, what we're trying to show is it's not getting any bigger than what we already have. We're not asking for anything. We've already had it all along. It's been there. It's been an agricultural place all along. And Drake and I were talking the other day, and we we're talking about growing 100 really good plants, really high quality that the medical people are gonna want, and really be desirable product that we will sell way beyond what the current market in the world. There's actually a little place you can go see what the current price is right now in the state of Massachusetts or the state of Oregon. It's a tough market out there. This is not easy money, and we're really committed to going down that road, and people are going to want to buy it because it helps to keep people alive who have serious illnesses, and that's what we're trying to do. So I would say to you, there will be about 100 plants on our part, and they will spend part of the time in the greenhouse very early in the season. Actually, first they'll spend some time in a little grow room, and then they'll come out, they'll be clones, and they'll be, going into the greenhouse, maybe about that big, and then they will come out of the greenhouse and go right out into the open in giant bags of really expensive soil, because Truro only has sand. And so it's the process that you saw with the Christmas tree farm one, with the big bags on the bottom, that's what we intend to do. And there will be 100 plants that will produce, 5, 6, 8 pounds per plant of really top quality stuff that the medical people and the research people are going to come to us for, because we can grow an organic, outdoor, super product. And that's really the truth. Go ahead.
There are 4 farms in Truro, and actually the way I understand it now, it's really 3 farms, and you're working with...
No, it's 4 farms, 3 locations.
But what you're asking us to do, 4 farms are asking to grow marijuana. I would like to know, if you would, if all this is allowed to you, what are you going to give to the town? I understand 20 jobs for the first 3 years, which is a baby business. They take a certain amount of money off the top of that. And then what you feel you want to give to the town, you will. Is there anything else?
We're giving a percentage of our profits to
That's-
local nonprofits.
Yes, but that's...
But on our own, that is not a regulated,
No, I know that.
Yep.
But that isn't regulated either, so you could say, well, gee, we can't do it this year, it's going to dry year.
it's in our bylaws, we don't have a choice.
Wow. Tell me, is that, so we have 4 farms that are going to raise marijuana. Now, this is in Truro. I'm a 3rd generation Truro person. For me, Truro is nirvana. It's utopian. It is not a place for grass.
Why?
So you're
Why?
asking...
Wait, can I speak for a moment? So, the state of Massachusetts legalized recreational marijuana. You look down the road, we have the vineyard. They're growing grapes. Grapes get turned into alcohol, a controlled substance. Now, I understand that this may not be for you, but the state, it's legal here in our state. So that has already been voted upon and decided upon. And let me finish. Currently, your neighbors are allowed to grow 6 plants at their home per adult, 12 plants per household, currently. And that is going on currently all over Truro right now, legally. So, okay.
Can I talk?
Oh, please.
I think that's been going on in Truro probably for all time. Truro is a very unique and wonderful place.
Agreed.
And we talk about wanting to keep it the same. I want to get back to my original question, because we're getting sidetracked here with emotions, and I don't want to do that. I want to be very specific.
Certainly.
Which is 4 farms. What are you going to give to the town for the town to allow you to grow marijuana?
Can I speak to that? I'm going to give to the town keeping my land rural agricultural land. Truro has been rural farmland most of its life, and all of it is being eaten up by money coming here that builds gigantic houses and puts these monstrosities all over the place, and nobody's panicking. Well, I'm originally from Nantucket. I'm going to tell you, you better panic. And this will take a number of sites and make them economically feasible for the local people who live on them and who want to keep them as rural as can possibly be and comply with the state rules and regulations.
But it will with vegetables too.
It will
Yeah.
what?
I have 4 acres where I live. And I grow vegetables, and I have a house cleaning business, and a property management business, and my husband's a carpenter and a fisherman, and we need to do all of those things just to hold on to my little antique cape, which I bought almost 20 years ago. I could turn around right now and sell my house and not have to be a house cleaner, a property manager, a carpenter. All we're looking to do is augment our income. And again, we're not making $1 million. That is not what this is about. Whether or not we want to share our business plan, please let me finish. So what I'm trying to do is augment my income so that I can continue to provide food to our community, that I can continue to work in the school. The money I make there isn't really what I make house cleaning, but I'm getting a little old to be doing that. And so what we're trying to do is provide the ability for young families, well maybe I'm not young, my kids are getting old, but families to remain in Truro and keep that integrity. Or I could sell my house and let someone build a 6,000 square foot mansion on my property, and I could retire pretty much at this point. But I want to be here. I love it here. I want to sell food at the farmer's market. I want to volunteer at the ag fair. I want to do all of that. But in order to do that, what am I providing? I think I provide a lot to this community, honestly.
Yes, you do. There's no question about it.
But I can't really, so what this is doing is it's making it economically viable for the farmers to continue, because you know what? Selling a potato for $4 a pound, and I work really hard growing potatoes. It's really not paying all my bills.
I'm very true. But you know, there are other people in this town with problems that have money problems.
I'm not asking, yeah, but I'm not asking anyone else to help me with my money problem.
Just think, for 4 families to want a business that is so, that will change the town forever.
I have one question. Have you guys ever been to my farm before? Or have you been to Pure Joy Farm before? I'm just curious. Have you actually been to any? Have you seen my farm before? I'm just curious at how is it changing things?
Because we're not retail.
Because it's growing marijuana.
Which is illegal, which is legal.
Which the town voted to do.
67% of this town voted on it.
66% of this town voted to legalize.
61, I'm sorry, I was over 6%. 61% of our population said it was okay. And regardless, it's the law. I mean, I don't think we need as many liquor stores here, but I'm not here to tell people that we should have less bars. That's called capitalism, free enterprise, free market. If they think that we can have a liquor store in North Truro and in Truro and at Salty's and at Jams, we have 5 places to buy alcohol in Truro. There's 1,200 of us in the winter, and I would say 1/3 of them are children. Do we need all that alcohol?
We certainly do not.
We do not, but is it our place if somebody buys a building and passes their special permit and they're by the zoning bylaws? I can't say, hey, I'm not a drinker and I don't want your liquor store here. That's not how it works.
I'm gonna reel things back a second, because you initially asked for what financial money we're gonna give.
No, just, I'm looking at anything that will.
Okay, well, there's two separate things. There's the host community agreement, okay, which we have to come to agreement with town council and everyone.
there's going to be income coming there that will cover the uses of the town resources. So if the town is going to take this much money as a resource to manage our industry, this new industry, if they're going to, it's going to cost the town this much, then that will be part of the host community agreement. They can't charge extra, they can only charge what is accounted for. When we talk about giving, it's a maximum 3% of our gross for a maximum of 5 years. So, you know, if you looked at most of our profit and loss statements, it's not a lot of money. Because guess what? We're not going to make a lot of money. That's the you know, there's an impression that we're here to make millions of dollars, and that's what our intentions are to do. That's not really it. We want to supplement our income so we can live a little bit more comfortable lifestyle. Okay, and hopefully for some of the people who are lucky enough to own land in Truro, be able to stay here and keep it going. Okay.
Maybe possibly ever.
I've been farming here for 31 years. I make like $4 an hour. Okay. Literally, I pay my employees well and I pay my bills, but I'm literally like making $4 an hour. Okay. I was unable, after living here for 30 some odd years, and like really feel like Truro is my utopia as well. Right? I had to move to Harwich because I couldn't afford a house here. Right? I couldn't do it. We couldn't even come close to affording a house here. So the options are limited for people in my generation, I'm 51, okay, and then someone in Drake's aged group is even more limited. So your question about what we're going to give to the town, I thought was initially financially what we're going to give to the town. We're going to give a percentage of our profits to the town nonprofits, and only to the town nonprofits, okay? That's where it's going to go. We feel like that's important. Council on Aging is important to us. Truro Rec is important to us. The school, obviously, our kids have all been there, is important to us. So those are the avenues that we're going to be giving our profits, a percentage of our profits to. We have not decided in our bylaws what the percentage is yet. Because we haven't, at the beginning of our bylaw creation, we didn't have any idea of our profit and loss statements and everything else, what it was going to look like. So we couldn't just say, well, we're going to give $100,000 a year every year for the rest of our lives. We couldn't do that. So we're in the process consensusly to come up with what percentage of our profits are we going to be giving to the town. It will be some. It's in our bylaws. We're going to make sure we do it. That's part of who we are, and that's what we're going to do. So we're going to do the host community agreement, whatever that is. We don't know yet. And then we're going to do a percentage of our profits are going to go into it. Okay? If our net and gross is really small and we're not making a lot of net, then it's unfortunate, but we're assuming in the beginning from at least our business profit and loss statements, very little profit is going to be made for the first few years until we can get to our production model down, learn how to get to 5 or 8 pounds per plant like John was talking about. None of us are going to get there in year 1. We're just going to be, farming does not allow that to happen. You can't just put it on paper. There's too many factors. A hurricane comes, we're done. Flat and simple, our business is done. So, it's going to be a percentage of our profits, guaranteed going to be delivered to some of the nonprofits of this town. And that is what we can commit today to you. As far as an actual number and a percentage, we can't do that yet. He would have to.
Yeah, no, I unfortunately just want to, for the record, make a couple of comments. First of all, I don't expect you to have to give any of the products to anybody. I think you should be able to keep all the products.
Well, that's what we expect of ourselves.
Yeah, so number one. And number two is, I support you farming, I support you farming and cultivating marijuana. So I just want to be clear on that. I think you're right, and I think for the additional income that you need, for all the things that you said, I agree with you. I do. My only concerns are any precedent that might be set for other industries, but I think that's been addressed. Just maybe taking it slow. Just want to make sure that we do this thoughtfully, and I think you're doing that. So you're encouraging me in this meeting. And then 3 would be probably the structures, but I think that you are as concerned about that as I am. saying this is your town. And then down the road, how big can it get? Can we just be sort of cognizant of that and be thoughtful in how this works? So that's really, I just want to be clear.
And I think it's a precedence of this group that we're good neighbors. It's always been that way, that's who we are as individuals already, So I think that's going to project itself into our businesses. The special permit process is going to slow things, stop anything that would get out of control, or if it, blossoms into something huge. It doesn't fit in with the town. The special permit process is there to make sure that whatever our businesses fit within the town's, whatever bylaws and chapters and charters and all the things that we've created in this town, we're going to follow those guidelines. We're not asking for anything other than just following the guidelines that already exist.
And that's why probably the place for me to voice more of my concerns would be with the folks who are going to finalize the bylaws and guidelines, just to make sure. And I think you would probably...
You as a town voter are going to be the one who finalizes the town bylaws.
Exactly.
There's going to be bylaws submitted, and I don't know what they're going to look like because it's in flux for sure.
Your farmers and one farm, I support.
Right.
So I appreciate the support.
Thank you. And the bylaws that everyone is working on have limits to the, not just for us, but as you were saying, for the future, not, limits of another co-op or other cultivators, because nobody, A, wants to see, that type of growth, and B, it is cost prohibitive. I mean, for someone to come to Truro and buy a piece of land with that intention, it's not really economically viable, the cost of land here. So I don't see that necessarily happening, but part of the bylaws had limits on the number of cultivators, the number of micro businesses, so that it will be finite, so that it won't just be open-ended like you were discussing.
You have to excuse me, I'm going to have to go. I just did an immunotherapy today, so my butt's kind of whipped. See you, Jen.
All right, see you all later.
So, Drake's still here to answer questions from your joy that we need to let John go and let go. So,
Were you gonna go to the
Marcia, you had a question. Marcia,
farms?
should we? Yeah. You had one more question, Marcia?
Yeah, you might be covered here, what'd you say? Sorry, I didn't hear.
I wanted them to go through the slides for the rest of the farms, so we could actually see how they lay out and that sort of helps it.
Marcia, would you?
Oh, you said you'd address this later, and it was that, you said something about a tier 3, and then what happens after 5 years? Does it become a 5 or a 7, or what does this mean?
So we'll talk
Yeah,
about
you said
tiers
you'd
real
talk
quick.
about that,
We don't have a slide for tiers, and I apologize for that. Okay, tier 1 is up to 5,000 square feet of canopy, okay?
Yep.
Tier 2, 5,001 to 10,000 square feet. Tier 3, 10,001 to 2,000, to 20,000 square feet, sorry. You can see the pattern beginning. So tier 4, 2,001 to 30,000 square feet. Tier 5, 30,001 to 40,000. Tier 6, 40,001 to 50,000 square feet. Tier 7, 50,001 to 60,000 square feet. Should I go on, or do you guys see the pattern? There's 11 tiers total in the state.
There is a top end.
There is a top end. It's 100,000 square feet is the top end.
Combined total for
The license is 100,000. So the way the tiers work, okay, an organization, whether it be a craft cooperative or a cultivator, a big cultivator, you're going to enter in a tier, okay? You then have to grow and sell 85% of your product after year 1. You have to release 85% of your inventory has to be sold before you can ask to move up a tier, okay? So if you don't sell 85% of your inventory and you have more left over, you are relegated back a tier.
Okay.
And you have to wait another year with the state to move up tiers. Every year you can move up a tier. You can reevaluate your license yearly. Now, after that first year, it takes a year to get the crop growing and get an inventory. After that, it's every 6 months they're gonna check. If 85% of your inventory is done at, you have to follow those benchmarks. You're always gonna have to get rid of 85% of your product and inventory has to be sold every 6 months after the first
What
year.
happens to the other 15%?
It could be waste, it could be,
Oh, okay.
there's a lot of damage, it could just not sell. If marijuana is a non-stable product.
Right.
Okay, it breaks down over time. So the quality is great in the beginning, and then every day after that, it drops down.
Okay.
So by the time you get down to, a year later, that might not be worth anything but going to be destroyed.
And there is, in the
sorry.
regulations, there's disposal methods, not only for that 15%, but all of your detritus.
Right.
It's basically-
Extend your leaf. You're not just like taking it to the dump in a
Yeah, you covered
garbage.
that in the last.
It's gonna be,
Yeah,
it's gonna go through hazardous waste protocol
Right,
that
I
the
got
state
it.
has. It's like,
Right.
everything's gonna be totally like.
And that all has to be weighed and monitored,
Right.
it's, again.
So, right now, we got 2,000 with Pure Joy Farm, okay? And we'll move on, I think I'm next, right? Tim and I are next. Tim and I, my farm, Rock Spring Nursery in Dave's Greens, as most of you know, is in the National Seashore. So I will not be growing cannabis on the National Seashore until the federal government changes its mind. And then we'll be able to work on it then. But at the moment, we cannot. So we are looking to lease land. And like I mentioned earlier, we've obtained some leases already. The site that we're initially planning on doing it, at Cabral Farm, does not have electricity. So we couldn't come up with a solution financially that was going to allow us to bring electricity down to Cabral Farm that would make it economically viable for us to grow cannabis there. So Cabral Farm is off the table at the moment until maybe our business model ramps up to where we get some more cash flow going, and we can then bring power down to there. But in the meantime, we can't bring power. So we are in negotiations. Numerous people have come to us looking to rent their land for us to grow cannabis on their property. So until those properties are completely nailed down and we have leases in hand and ready to move and the deal's been done, at that point, Tim and I will hold another meeting, just like this one, to talk to you about exactly the overlay maps, so you can see the percentage of the lot space we're going to use. We'll talk about greenhouses again. We'll talk about canopy again. We'll go through the whole process. And in the part of that process is that we'll have to notify the 300-foot abutters that is typical, with this kind of situation. So abutters will be notified. So once again, I'm going to continue to grow vegetables, even at $4 an hour, because that's who I am. Fortunately, my wife is a labor and delivery nurse, and she subsidizes my farming efforts completely. Okay, so unfortunately, I couldn't make enough money selling vegetables to buy a house in Truro. So I had to leave my utopia to go to suburbia, and that's a sacrifice I made for my family's future, so that I could pass a home to my kids, right? So Truro didn't offer me that. Truro offers me great surf, beautiful surroundings, wonderful people, but it didn't offer me the opportunity after 31 years of working in this town to buy land. Okay? I chose a line of farming. You don't become a farmer in Truro to make money. You do it, it's not about a quantity of money, it's a quality of life. And that's what John was talking about. Farms are way more important to us than just the vegetables and the dollars that you pass back and forth at the farmer's market. If that was it, I would have been out long ago. Never would I have gone 31 years struggling like I have been. So we, as a whole, value our land, value our farms, and I don't even know why I got this train of thought, but basically, we need to have an opportunity to move up in tiers if we need to, if we want our business to succeed. It turns out that when the research happens, it's really about, I don't know if you know economies of scale, what the term means, but due to economies of scale, it's going to look about 10,000 square feet is going to be the bottom of this industry. In the beginning, it's going to be less because it's a new industry and there's no inventory, there's no, demand is so high that it's going to be great getting in the beginning. But then, as it flushes out, 10,000 square feet is gonna be kind of like where people are gonna make it or not break it. And that's just by using other states' models. You know, you can get up to 100,000 square feet, but someone can come in with a big license and buy 5 licenses and have a lot of them. So, all of us need the opportunity to advance our businesses to the next step. Okay, is it gonna happen year 1, year 2, year 3? It's really dependent on a lot. And with agriculture, like farming is, you know, as growing cannabis is, it's gonna depend on nature, weather, genetics, all sorts of things. So as we talk about tiers and canopy levels and square footage, you know, we're gonna enter slow, and then we're gonna slowly build up. And I think our intentions would be to use our entire 100,000 square foot if we can make our businesses grow that much and divide that up. Go ahead. Yeah.
So you don't have land here now, but you have people that are willing to let you lease land.
Correct.
Like-
Well, we're in negotiations.
Okay.
And until I have a lease in hand, I'm not gonna out those people and their, you know, properties.
Right.
And then when the time comes, we have to have another meeting, and we'll have to have another abutter list sent out, a 300-foot abutter list sent out. So, currently, as far as our business model goes, we're looking at somewhere between 5,000 square feet and 7,000 square feet, getting in the industry at that level. So now we're gonna tack on, well, actually 7 is not realistic, it's more like 5. So we're looking at 5,000 square feet of production, now we're at 7,000 if you're keeping track, okay? So once again, we're gonna use mixed production, greenhouse, indoor production, and open air cultivation. That's the way the business model is gonna need to be to survive in this industry, in my opinion. You're gonna need to be able to capitalize on all of that. The products we're gonna be producing are flowers, which is the bud that you may or may not have smoked in the past, but the industry calls that flowers. It is technically a flower. Extracts will be produced. That's take away all the other parts of the cannabis plant, the waxes, the lignins, the fiber, the carbon. You strip all that stuff away and you get just the cannabinoids, which are the medicinal part and the THC part. That's an extract. Seeds and cuttings. We're going to be producing and breeding plants, producing seed for sale as well. Sales distribution is going to be through licensed adult use dispensaries, once again, medical research facilities, processors, and medical dispensaries. I left my phone number there because it would be so easy if we could just talk to each other when a question comes up and we can arise it, because then the rumbling can slow down a little bit and we can all catch our breath and write some good bylaws and get to town meeting. Because that's what ultimately I think everyone in this room probably wants.
But I think you've given us more information tonight than we've ever heard before.
We said this exact same thing at the second meeting we had. We went, because we had to define what tiers we were going into, because we had a checklist with the CCC checklist. We went down the checklist. Remember that? We went down, we had to cover all the specific.
But I think not having had this information before brought on a lot of uneasiness, because it's like, how much, where, what are they going to do, you know?
Yeah.
So it's been helpful to hear your specifics.
And I once again, my phone has always been there. I'm at the post office. You can just stop me and say, Dave, what are you going to do? You want 10?
Well, I think many of us wanted the big picture.
Yeah.
Because it's not just a solitary.
But it actually ends up being lots of little pictures by the time you get into it, you know. So feel free to contact us and talk to us, because that way we can have a discussion, a dialogue that will benefit all of us, you know. And then the rumbling can stop. So that's basically it. When we've got our location determined, that's when we'll bring it to the public again. And we'll get a smaller room because we might not need a big room. But let's move on to the next farm. Up there's our logo, which we hope to be branded throughout the state. YouTube, there you go. So we're at 7,000 square feet. We're all on the same page.
So we're out there growing, which is, right now we're out there organics, which is our regular farm. And we are also going to grow greenhouse, outdoor and indoor. And we are also located at 21 Bridge Road, which is John Hopkins and Deb's spot. And we are also within that yellow zone. We are only going to grow about 2,000 square feet. That's a canopy, not full space. So now we're at 9,000.
9,000?
9,000. It's not very much. We own and operate our own farm. We do all the work ourselves with our children and with us. We use no-till methods, and we actually don't use any machinery either. We use a wheelbarrow, a shovel, and a pitchfork.
And hands.
And our hands. And our backs. I utilize only organic methods. I use organic fertilizers. I have not even used any pesticides this year. I get up very early in the morning and I crush bugs with my fingers. And then I go out at dusk and I crush more bugs with my fingers. That's my pest control method. I have a huge patch of milkweed on my farm that I tend to and it's an invasive species. And I try and keep it in one corner, but I battle it in all my fields. But to me, that's important to provide habitat. And that sort of goes back to that whole discussion of fence. So many animals move through my farm and my property. I have a little wetland on my property. We have a pair of ducks that come and go every year. And that's what's important to me is actually the habitat. And part of the reason I'm an organic farmer is, yes, to have the food, but it's also a stewardship to the land. And that's something that we use in all of our agricultural practices. So we would continue that. That's pretty much it. If anybody else has any questions about that.
So you farm in the same spot that John does?
Yes, within that yellow square, we are both going to have our 2,000 square foot canopy.
And all of the vegetable farming is within the red?
Yeah, well, I farm on my farm. I live in the seashore.
Okay.
So I'm able legally to do this on my particular farm.
I really think we all live on the same road.
I know, we're all on Holmesbury.
Except for Peter.
Except for Peter. But I don't know if you know Holmesbury, but the seashore sort of runs almost kind of down.
Everybody's starting to get to know Holsbury.
I know, huh? Yeah. We're coming out of the woods. And all of our driveways are very long. If you drive down Holsbury, you will not see any farm.
That was my point earlier.
Yeah. You cannot see, this Old Bridge Road is a long dirt road that comes off of Holsbury. My driveway is a very long driveway. The driveway up to Dave's spot, which is not where we're cultivating, is also. So as far as like seeing it and all of that, you already can't see any of our farms. And so, from the road that is. So we will continue our vegetable production and flowers and herbs, and we have bees and all of that, and we'll continue that on our piece. But our gracious farmer neighbors have offered to rent us a piece of their land as well. So, so that's what we're going to do for the time being.
It's actually great for our business model because we share expenses of fencing if needed, for surveillance if needed, for computer system and geo-tracking, which I don't know if we're going to get into it all here.
It's on there, but we're probably going to slim through that one pretty quick.
And also using, being able to bounce ideas off of each other with another person on the same site and sharing techniques is going to be very important. And that's something that sort of is across the entire Dune Craft Cooperative is peer-to-peer help. And making sure that we're all doing it the same way so that someone's product doesn't test positive for pesticides or something else that was unforeseen. So we sort of can monitor each other because really the success of one of us out of the co-op is not important as so much as the success of all of us as the co-op, because our tier level is dependent on that 85% of our inventory being sold. So it's sort of imperative.
For every member.
It's imperative that all of us put out a quality product.
We're going to hit a little bit. Let's hit
You got one left, right?
Yep.
Well, that's impossible to read,
Oh, I'm sorry.
but it's pretty much the same as everybody else. Why don't we go to the next slide, because it shows the area, right? That's what people want to know. Okay, so I think maybe I should get up and explain.
It's where you need a
this.
little laser
Yeah,
pointer.
I don't have a laser pointer.
The house is here.
We have just under 10 acres of land off of Longneck Road. And that dark area, if we decided to grow cannabis, that's where we would do it.
Where's your house?
Our house is right where it says 139. That lot there, which is almost 3 acres, is where our house is. And this 140, that rectangle, is where my existing greenhouse is. We do a lot of our growing there as well as across the street. This road that goes up here is a subdivision which we own. And it's never been developed, so it's just sitting there vacant. And
Is there an actual road currently?
No, there's no
Yeah.
road. There's no road.
It's all wooded
And
area.
there never will be a road. It's highly, highly wooded area. The road, the way it's laid out like here, cannot be built, the planning board will not approve it. The grade is too steep. So if we wanted a road, it would have to come from over here, and it would run right through our house. So we're not interested in that. So this area here that you're looking at is a little over 3 acres, and it could easily take 100,000 square feet of canopy with no problem. Absolutely no problem. It's not our intention to do that, but even with 100,000 square feet of canopy, we have another 20,000 square feet going around that space as buffer area. So this is a very, very wooded area, and members of the planning board have come up and seen this area and have agreed that there's no way anybody could see anything from up here, so it's not visible to any neighbors really. We have a few neighbors that we abut, and then over here is the National Seashore. Now, this is not an easy parcel of land to farm. First of all, the soil is unusable. I've had it for farming anyway. I've had it analyzed, and when I got the analysis back from UMass, the technician who did the analysis wrote on it in pen, "Don't bother." It's that bad. So growing in the ground up there is not possible. You could grow in bags, or you could put up some kind of a greenhouse, either like the one that I have or a Quonset type greenhouse. And if we decided to grow up there, I have a lot of decisions to make because I've got to get water up there. It's quite steep. It's not easy to develop that. So until the town decides that they're going to give us a host community agreement and we get a license, there's no point in me doing anything. So I'm not really going to go up there and start to prepare this site. And one of the benefits of growing cannabis up there would be the fact that I can grow cannabis for medical use. I'm using some right now, medical marijuana, and it's made a hell of a difference in me being able to use my hands. My hands have been very, very arthritic to the point where I can't really do much with them. And now I can actually flex them. So the other benefit would be it gives us the ability to make it comfortable so that we can maintain all of that as open space. Every one of my neighbors along that subdivision, which is undeveloped, is living next to thick woods. So you ask about contributions to the town. I think that's a significant contribution to every one of my neighbors. They're living in a place where they have a lot of open space around them. And they don't have to worry about, some big mega mansion coming in there.
I'm going to reel back to our square footage. Peter,
Yeah.
how many square feet do you intend to start year one? If you get your HDCC agreement.
And if I decide to go forward with the investments up there, between 2,000 and 4,000 square feet.
So we're at 9,000, so let's say we're at 13,000 square feet of canopy, year one. And I want to stress year one. because it wouldn't be any one of these people's business model to stay at that level once the competition really ramps up in the years to come. If we're gonna spend all of this money and time and energy for a license that's 100,000 square feet of canopy, then we should be allowed to use it. The state's gonna allow it. If we can get through the special permit process and the site review process, then we should be allowed to use that 100,000 square foot of production. So that, what was we say? We said 13,000? Like I thought, Matt, I said, one of the first slides up there, I said, we're gonna enter the tier 3. Okay? Tier 3, there's been some discussion that we say we're gonna be, you know, that we're gonna, initially we said we're gonna use 8,000 square feet, and it was maybe implied that that was gonna be it. But we never, ever, in any of our meetings, and I had to go back through the tapes to watch, we never said we weren't gonna advance and move forward up the tiers if our business's model can succeed and we can actually get there. We have to start small because we're all broke. So we have to incrementally go slowly. The beauty of that for the town is that we can see how this industry is going to really look. It is a utopia. This town is a wonderful nirvana, and I couldn't agree more with you. But I don't think our 14,000 square feet of production is going to change the face of Truro as dramatically as you may think. It's going to be secure. It has to be secure by the state. It has to be secure by the town of Truro Police and the fire department and the Board of Health and everything else. So we're going to comply with all the regulations to keep our license. We're going to be open and honest with you all along the process. So let's start small and work our way up eventually to where we're going to need to go. Every step, there's going to be a process that the town's going to be able to be involved in. So our goal is to just get started so we can get our brand into the industry and we can begin to make a name for ourselves and try to capitalize when the market is strong and good, which is in the beginning, because it's estimated in the beginning the prices will be roughly $1,800 to $2,000 a pound. But by year 4 and 5 and 6, it's estimated to be $400 a pound. So here's an industry where if you get in year 1, you may get enough of a niche and you may get your brand noticed, right? And people like your brand, that you may be able to get through the point where you can get down to $400 a pound for production. So it's important to us to move along relatively quickly. And like I said, we've been at this for a while, and I think we've been really communicative with the town, and you know, I hope tonight's meeting is a little bit more clear about what our intentions are. But by no means are we saying we're going to stop at 14,000 square feet. Okay, if our business model can take us to the next step, then we're going to take it there. Okay, and I think that would be like any other business. I mean, the vineyard started off with wine, then they started buying in grapes from Colorado and California and New York State to make a lot more wine. Then they built a distillery and they made one thing. And now my good friend Dave Roberts is making really excellent spirits. And he's now up to like, I think he's got a 6th different product. Okay, he's advancing his business. Okay, something we want to do the same thing, and we're going to use the vineyard as an example because it's a controlled substance. Okay, it's something that is a concern. So we want a regulated cannabis industry that is tested and is safe. Okay, and it's for 21 years and older. That's our goal. That's what this law is. Okay, it's to get the black market out of the business and get, in our case, local farmers in the business. Okay. Everyone's driving up and down Route 6 Stone, and they've been doing it for a long time, okay? And everyone's been growing pot for a long time, albeit they're growing more now than they were because they can do it legally now, and a lot more people can put it in the sun. So I'm going to rip through these slides now really pretty quick, just so we get any kind of other...
I'd like to say I just want to say one more thing about my farm. If you look up there, you see that heavy dark line on the right, that's the National Seashore boundary. This farm was 80 acres originally, and when my father-in-law bought it, he bought 30 acres of it. And all the lots that you see to the west were all part of the farm
that my father-in-law bought. He sold off pieces over the years to put his kids through school. He was a school teacher. My point here is that I personally feel that there should be a special property category for legacy farms. And I'm addressing you, Steve, on this. And if there was, a lot of the issues that we're talking about here would go away. Because what we're trying to do is cram a bylaw to surround what's been done on farms or what is going to be done on farms that is applying to 3/4 acre lots. And that is just, I mean, that's why there's been issues. Because a lot of those things don't work in a farm context. So we're trying to do our best to work with these definitions for the bylaws. And I agree, should somebody on a 3/4 acre lot have a large greenhouse for growing cannabis? I don't think I'd like that very much. But we have, I happen to have a lot of land, but all these other people have over 2 acres too, and they're all legacy farms.
I thought Pure Joy was 1 acre.
That lot is 1 acre. There's another lot that's another acre. It in total, the full expanse that they have is 2.2 acres.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're only applying for that
No,
lot.
I was just confused.
And he owns 2 contiguous lots.
So there is some of the security realities that has to happen.
What kind of fence is that right in the foreground?
Say that again? That's actually, we put that fence there because there is cannabis on the other side of that fence.
No, this wire fence.
Oh, that's
This is in Oregon,
Is that
okay?
barbed
But
wire?
there's a lot of barbed wire in Oregon, okay?
got a lot of cattle.
But we're showing you an example of what a security fence may look like in the town of Truro, okay? No one has ever, on our side, said we're gonna have razor wire, 10-foot chain link fences. That we never thought that. We never talked about that. None of us want that. You know, there's been certainly some rumbling in town about razor wire fences. We're going to put the fence up that is appropriate for our neighborhood, and that the state mandates we do. You know, if they want something that can't be seen through, then we're going to make sure we can't see through it. If they want something that, you know, that's more structural than that, then that's, you know, we're going to follow whatever it is. But that is an actual cannabis farm in Oregon with that state's requirements. So, limited access, no one can access one of these businesses unless you are a certified agent. You have to get a license to the state to be an agent. An agent is an employee. Yeah, that's what the state's calling them. So you have to be 21 years old. You have to go through a series of background checks. You have to go through job training on how to handle cannabis. You have to go through the responsible vendor program to learn how to do that. And not everyone there'll be certain limited accesses. Where the safe is, will be limited access. Okay, where inventory is kept, every agent that you hire that might be your employee is not going to have access to every part of the farm. Product inventory is seed to sale, and real-time inventory includes waste. So waste has to be discussed, it has to be dealt with the Board of Health. We have to go through a lot of different rules to make sure that our waste is deneutralized, or whatever you want to call it, so whatever they call it. In an unusable form, so we may have to chop it up, or I mean, I don't know what we're going to do. I think we have to
Chop it up and
we
add.
have to add some kind of liquid additive thing to it to make it not work anymore. There's all sorts of things we're going to have to do. We can't just throw it in the compost pile and call it good. We have to actually go through a process that the state's going to mandatory and that the Board of Health is going to regulate. So transportation.
Bring it back to just really quick, to the seed to sale, real-time inventory. Another cost we'll have to incur, sort of when you go to the Stop and Shop and you can shop with the little scanner. Much like when you get a tag for your lobster pot, we will have to receive a GPS tag from the state, and that will be from seed. So you'll receive, say, your 40 tags, And then I have the seed, I'll scan it, it will go with the seed. Every time that that seed is transplanted, the plant is touched, you scan again. And that's a GPS scanner, so it's going to the CCC.
Just look.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, just,
Sorry.
we went ahead to the slide.
Sorry. And that's all the way from seed to the very end, so when you load it in the vehicle to take it to the dispensary, you'll scan it. When it gets to the dispensary, it'll be scanned again.
As far as, we, part of our license will allow us to transport our product to our clients, okay? We will have to have two agents, 2 employees in the vehicle. There has to be a bolted, safe deposit thing installed in the car. There can be no signage on the car that makes it look like it's a cannabis anything. There have to be every half-hour check?
Every half hour.
Every half hour, you have to call into the state and say, here we are. To the farm, we'll get to the base. And then you can't take the same route to the same place every time. You have to mix it around. There's going to be a lot of process involved in getting it distributed as well. So this is the seed to sale flow chart I created. It shows the whole process that we have to go through from beginning to end. Every plant, once it's 8 inches high, will get what's called a geotag. It's a GPS monitored thing, so they can watch that plant leave from one part of the facility to the next. They'll be able to follow it with GPS and on video, because we're all going to be videoed. The whole thing will be under video. So, and then like Stephanie said, that process goes all the way through to sale. So plant number 412 is going to get processed. It's going to get sold to this medical research facility at Tufts, and it's going to all be monitored through the GPS and through what's called the geotags. There's a really sophisticated group that's going to be controlling the geotags. They're also involved in Oregon and I believe Washington as well. The state is, using them as their vendor. I think it's, pretty much it in there. Any questions about that? It's kind of the outline of our business, really. It's like what we have to do from beginning to end here. So the next one is, this was from our second meeting we had. We decided that after the first meeting, we had heard a lot of concerns. So we thought we would bring these are the first concerns we heard from our first meeting that we brought to you at the second meeting. We went over all one of these concerns at that time. So is there anything here that any of your concerns that is not on this list?
Sure. I just want to say the desire to expand the canopy to 100,000 square feet. What if the town did not want you to expand to 100,000 square feet and wanted to limit that to something less than 100,000 square feet?
That would limit our ability to be successful.
I understand that.
In an industry that's going to be very volatile.
Well, I think that with the lawyer, compromise is the answer. I think there's a little bit of fear, and it may be misguided, but from what I understand is that the town wants you to be able to get that foothold, or at least is trying to make that happen. But the ability of the town to keep a commercial cultivator from coming in and being a 100,000 square foot canopy grower is part of the concern that the planning board has. And there's nothing that I would like more than to keep every farm that farms to continue farming. It would be absurd to lose farmland. So I'm in favor of keeping the farms. There was an interesting point that farmland that has been farmland for 100 years, suddenly becoming more trophy homes is the last thing I would want to see. So I just, but the canopy, the tier factors.
Yeah.
I think that, I've been in meetings all day already, so.
I know.
Steve, as a business person, this makes no sense.
Which makes no sense.
For someone who has several $1 million to come to Truro
We discussed that, absolutely.
and to buy some place where they can put 100,000 square feet of canopy.
I
It just,
understand that.
I mean, the property costs are
Absolutely.
very high, the operating costs are high, and the transportation, they'd have to take to someplace else. There's plenty of other places in the state of Massachusetts. If I had that kind of money, I would take that money and invest it somewhere else.
Not all
So,
of that.
I just want a little clarification, because you mentioned the cultivator, a larger cultivator coming in. Are you talking about a craft cooperative? Or are you talking about the cultivator?
There's so much in the CCC. One of the lines in there is that the town cannot make it so onerous that you can't have your business. And that's tough, because what the town wants to do is make it hard for a Houston-based marijuana manufacturer to come here, but we want to make it easier for a cooperative to exist. And separating the two, although they're in the definitions, and you'll be able to read the whole thing at some point soon.
I mean, with,
You mean between the
It's just-
cultivator and the cultivator?
It's very difficult to make it clear and allow people to understand what it is. And the tiers, I would say if you can reach a certain point with the cooperative, that would allow you to exist, but probably keep that 100,000 number out of the picture might be a path. And I understand, you know.
Well, we've already limited within our own
Yes,
Dune Craft cooperative
so that's
bylaws
only the
to
start.
50,000.
Right.
so none of us can get any.
None of us can get any bigger than that.
And the other thing that, I mean, everyone here doesn't have
Well,
privy.
one second, let's
Yeah.
so what you're saying is that you've already decided that 50,000 would be the top end of the
For an
co-op.
individual farm.
Within the
One
co-op.
one member of the co-op cannot have more than 50,000 square feet of canopy without serious discussion about their future in the co-op.
They'd probably have to leave the co-op if they want.
So 5 farms could have 20,000.
Yeah, I see some issues with the canopy totals, but I mean, on the whole, I appreciate the presentation, and I understand, I know most Truro residents do not want to see fences as their security. So the screening is an issue that people are interested in. The security is an issue that people are interested in. And the other thing that you brought up, Mr. Stoughton, was about these farms are actually in what is now residential districts, what was once farming districts. And so,
The residences have come to the farms.
yes, and so who has the power is the question. Do the residents say, I don't want pods and greenhouses and pot growing around my house because this is my special place?
And correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't the special permit process address those issues?
Absolutely will.
And
I'm just raising these up. I hope I'm not trying to confuse anyone. Because I think what you said, and it's really true, if it was originally was a farm and we can save that land as farmland, this is the number one issue. That's a farm still. The product, we may not all agree with it, but it's still a farm.
I want to go back because I want a little clarity from when you first started the discussion. The concern is some of the concern is of the Houston-based 100,000 square foot license coming in. Now, not a lot of people have had privy to the bylaws that have been in flux over the last few weeks.
That's right.
In the process of the negotiations, in the process of these bylaws being cooperatively worked on between the planning board and our organization, the cultivator license, which is not what we're going for. We're
Yes,
going for
I
the
know.
craft cooperative license. Big difference. The cultivator license has been taken off the table for residential district.
Yes, it is.
Okay?
So there's no-
So there's something we've already
It's
negotiated.
clear
So,
that we're not going to allow the cultivator, which is the big business, to exist in residential districts.
And basically, the way Truro is, that there really is nowhere, because it also can't be near the school.
These are things that you didn't cover because they are actually going to be part of the bylaw.
yeah, so I mean, I don't want to discuss the bylaws that have been in flux
Okay.
because these folks haven't had privy to that. I mean,
Okay.
we've been posting along the way as we go on our Facebook page, but, the bylaws are complex.
Yeah,
But-
that one part
But that one
about-
has been, that's something that was removed. And another thing is it wasn't unlimited micro businesses and unlimited craft cooperatives. There's been a cap, discussion about how many craft cooperatives can there be in the town of Truro? Okay, so that's in the new bylaw, that's in the draft that is being drafted every minute, it feels like. There's a new draft
Keeps changing
that comes
by the
out, like
minute.
5 a day. So, it's hard to keep
People,
up with.
not that many, but it's
It feels
more
like
than we need. More than-
So there is, there's a lot of other provisions that have gone into these bylaws, one being a boundary. If you want to build a shed within 25 feet of your property line, you got to go to town and get all this special permission, okay? We've extended the cannabis boundary to 50 feet. So we've already doubled in residential district. So we've already doubled our buffer zone that the town already exists. Okay, so there's been a lot of give and take in this process, a lot more than any of us farm. I mean, obviously we're not lawyers, we're not town planners, so it's been a lesson for all of us. But the goal, and I think Steve can appreciate the goal, is to get one set of bylaws to town meeting that we can get passed. That the 61% of the town that voted yes for cannabis that might want it here can have their voice heard as well. So we need to collaboratively work together to get there. And I applaud Karen Tosh for the effort she has done so far, because she's really been working very, very hard. And I applaud our lawyer, who's been working really, really hard to get to where we are today. And part of that is our give and take. Ethically, do I want to limit anyone's businesses? Probably not. It's not who I am. It's a free America. You want to have a business, you can have a business. But in the big picture, there's concessions made. And I think that when you get a chance to read the bylaws, they'll begin to make a lot more sense about the limits that are placed upon us and on future businesses. I'm not just trying to look at of us, but what about my grandkids if they want to have a cannabis business in Truro? Or what about another existing farm like, the Canes or the Perrys want to get into the business, okay? We don't want to limit them, right? If one of them, if George Mooney's grandkid wants to have a cannabis farm on his property, well, then I think George Mooney's grandkids should know how to have that. If they're going to be crazy enough to try to get into this industry, which is beginning to look crazier and crazier every day. But, I don't want to limit everyone in the future, but, so we've reined in things, we've really controlled, we've really negotiated a lot and made a lot of concessions to the future of how this will look in our town. And I keep going back to the special permit process and the site plan, because that is where the town has a say in what and where this business is going to look like. We can't have a location without that special permit. So everything, whether it's a 1 acre lot, a 2 acre lot, a 10 acre lot, whatever it is, commercial, residential, we're all giving up Beach Point because it's a little sensitive up there. But I mean, this industry's here, it's not going to go away, and it's going to just keep knocking on the door. And we need bylaws, because without bylaws, it's a lot worse of a situation than we would be without it. So we need to be able to work together, get our concerns addressed, and bring it to the table, and then we can start to continue our negotiation. As a prudent business person to go into this industry, the town cannot create barriers for us to get into this business. okay? It's a lawsuit. If the town creates undue barriers, okay, we're looking at a lawsuit. And that's what none of us want. But the reality is the law says that the town cannot create undue barriers for a prudent business person to want to enter this industry. If a prudent business person can't get more than 10,000 square feet of production, canopy production, they're not going to want to go into business. Economies of scale are going to dictate that, okay? We need to be able to move up in tiers. We can't stay at tier 3. We won't make it. The numbers will not work. And it's a frightening sight. They'll work for the first couple of years when the demand is high. As soon as the demand goes down and production goes up in the state, okay, that's when, like any other agricultural commodity, if you grow too much, price drops, okay? So it's going to flush itself out. It looks like it's going to be minimum to get into the game. You're going to need 10,000 square feet to stay legitimate and to stay relevant in the industry. The big guys are coming. They're coming with 5 licenses, 500,000 square feet. There's a facility being built with 1 million square feet right now, guys. Okay? That's what's happening in this state. Not in Truro.
Why are you threatening?
I'm not threatening. I'm just telling you, I'm just telling you, if you look at the bylaws that have been written now, you're going to see that that's not going to happen here. There's a reality that what could happen, and then there's a reality of what couldn't. You know, if there's no bylaws, if the bylaws are not voted upon and agreed upon and passed by this town, it's going to be a problem because there's going to be no bylaws to control the industry. And anyone with big, deep pockets will get a lawyer to fight it. And then they'll be able to come here and open up shop and with no bylaws. We need bylaws to protect the town.
I think the town's working on it, right?
We've been working, it's not just the town, it's our group and the
Yeah,
town.
that's what I mean.
We've been working diligently, and that's what I'm saying. We've made a lot of compromises throughout the negotiations. One of them was removing the marijuana cultivator from the residential district. So that big guy with the 100,000 square foot, right, can't come in to Truro and do it. So, what is that?
We're 45 minutes over and the town's maintenance person is concerned.
Truro it isn't a great place for agriculture. Why are you thinking that someone's going to come in and buy up all this land?
I'm not thinking that. I've never thought. That's the rumbling we've been hearing in the town, that there's going to be a 100,000 square foot greenhouse, blazing lights all night long on a piece of property. That's the rumbling we've been hearing.
Have we not heard
Day in and day out, that's the rumors we've been hearing. And that's not what we are. When it's not what we are, that's not even what we're advocating. We actually advocated the opposite. So I want everyone to realize that we are not really like on much different pages than you think. There's just some fine details about square footage. And there has to be some reality to be in this business to be able to move up in tiers for us to be successful. If we can't move up in tiers, we can't be successful. We now have barriers that are inhibiting us to get into this business, which could be fought in a court of law. And I'm not trying to threaten lawsuits. I'm saying we don't have the means for a lawsuit. It's not us. If we don't get the bylaws, it's going to be someone else who wants to come here because there's no bylaws. They'd be like, hey.
You don't have to tell me about the bylaws, David. Okay? We all understand that we need bylaws.
Yeah, so the goal is that we can get on the same page and get this thing through.
It's 9:44, we all have a farmer's market
Yeah, I gotta go to bed.
I gotta go at 4.
Okay, we're 45 minutes over.
4 a.m., so.
Thank you,
Thank you all for
If you have
being
any
here.
more concerns, just talk to us
Thank you.
at the post office, call us. If you have any questions, just keep on discussing.
So is Joe here, right? Is Joe here?